Hi, this is Andrew Sears. I'm going to explain to you how CityVision's rubric for master's courses works. Many of you want to get an A, and this is basically the guide to get an A every time. So what a rubric is, it's a guide that the faculty members use to grade the course. And it has criteria to try to make it as objective as possible. So our master's rubric, there are 4 areas: mastery of course content, 30% of the grade; application and reflection. And I'll talk a little bit more about these later. Critical thinking and Bloom's taxonomy level of learning, so that's 25% of the grade, and written communication, 10% of the grade. So let me start off on the first item in the rubric, and I'm not going to go through all the levels of this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the top level, because that's what every student should be shooting for. So the first question is mastery of course content. How well does the student show mastery of content covered in this assignment and in the course? So this is largely measuring lower level Bloom's remembering and understanding. I'll talk about that in the next slide. But what you're looking for is to exceed expectations. So evidence provided by student to show that they have reviewed all the material in the course, effectively reference concepts from the course materials, and demonstrated mastery of those concepts. So that's opposed to, there's sometimes I've seen some papers where they wrote the paper as if they didn't even read, any of the material, didn't reference any of it. So that's what you're trying to do to get the most points in that area. Now, to talk about the rest of them, even in this one, I want to talk about something called Bloom's taxonomy, how we design our courses, and how that relates to grading rubrics. So the idea of Bloom's taxonomy is at the beginning of learning, you're just trying to remember stuff. So we're going to give you video and audio, and those should reinforce each other in many of our courses, and you can remember it. So if you're just repeating something back, you may not even understand it. But then understanding is the next level, and that's where you can explain ideas or concepts rather than just recall. And then applying would be, applying it to your context, using it in a new situation. Analyzing would be where you break it apart. And these are the verbs that you'll see. And evaluating would be to, evaluate arguments and, evaluate and say, does this actually make sense? And create, and often I like the word synthesis. It's where you're going to take all the pieces, where if analyzing would be breaking all the pieces of a Lego kit into pieces, creating would be creating an entire new Lego creation, right? So normally the way we organize our courses is we start with executive summaries to get you to solidify this. Then we do forums and minor assignments. Then we do major projects and major assignments. So part of why that's important is recognizing that in college, freshman to junior courses often are at these first 3 levels. In high school, sometimes it just stays at the first level. But once you get to senior courses, or graduate courses, you need to be doing things at this level in your major project. So what happens is a lot of times people are used to the basic level. They went to community college, or they just came out of high school, and what the teacher expected all the time was just regurgitating information. And then they get to a master's course, and then they try to do the same thing, and then they fail. And that would be like, we're saying create a Lego masterpiece, but all you're doing is doing exactly what's in the instruction kits, or even just quoting the instruction kits back to us. So that relates to some of these other items. So this next one, the rubric for application and reflection. So this one is, we might give you a project, and you're supposed to create something for your organization. So we ask, from the perspective of the organizational executive director, senior staff, or board member, how effective is this document in serving the organization's climate? So that is if it's a practical assignment. We also have reflection assignment. So that might be something where we're asking you to, reflect on your own life, or, things along those lines. And from the perspective of a leadership or spiritual mentor, how effectively is a student using this assignment to press into personal growth? So that's really what this item is about. And to exceed expectations for a practical assignment, you would meet quality expected of senior staff, fully meeting expectations of similar documents or projects of a senior leadership in the organization. So if you're writing a grant, would someone in the organization say, wow, that was a well-written grant? That's basically what we're asking. On the reflection, showing the deepest levels of reflection expected of students in ways that could lead them to deep growth. And it also shows that you're embracing the ideals taught in the class at a deep level with the intent to apply them in your life. So we're not just trying to get head knowledge, we're trying to get heart knowledge. So if we're teaching a course on leadership and it's not clear that you're really trying to embrace some of the best practices or things along the lines of that course, then you're not going to do as well on that part. Does that make sense? So then the third one is on critical thinking and learning mastery. So again, this links back to Bloom's taxonomy. And we're essentially asking, are you at that higher level of Bloom's taxonomy? Now, not all assignments are worded so they could be a synthesis. Sometimes they're actually worded so they're an analysis. But there's the question, are you at that higher level? And then there's this idea called critical thinking, where we have some links that we provide to you, where you can look up the definition of critical thinking. But are you exploring all the ideas of the topic deeply and doing that clearly and showing mastery? So then the last thing is just written communication. So do you show best practices of writing for this type of assignment? Sometimes we'll have you do APA, and sometimes if it's for a nonprofit organization, we're going to say, what would it really look like? This is business communication. You don't have to use all APA format, but it is critical that you reference things. So are you exceeding expectations, or do you have lots of errors in there that's very difficult to understand? So hopefully this is helpful. Whenever you submit things, I would encourage you to take the rubric and look at it yourself and say, how would you score it? And if you're not getting the same score as the instructor, it may mean that you don't understand the definitions well, and you might need to research some of these things better, or talk to your instructor. So if you have any questions, ask your instructor. Thanks a lot.